Hello, my name is Michele, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. With me today is Rachael Bozsik, an international speaker and the go-to elite personal branding coach for high-achieving interior designers. Rachael has been featured in Forbes, Glamour, at Harvard Business School, Oprah's Leadership Academy, and much more. Our conversation today will focus on building out your niche, your authority, and your visibility to attract your ideal client and keep your pipeline full. It's going to be a great conversation. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Rachael, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Michele. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to chat with you today.
Me too. I've been looking forward to this.
I know. You and I have chatted off camera, off screen, and now we're going to be able to chat and let everybody listen into our conversation. And I'm so excited because this is one of the first podcast of 2022. And so I am just thrilled that the conversation we're going to have is going to be able to help people plan out their 2022. So at the end, I'd really like to even think about, helping them think about the things we're going to talk about and maybe what they look at quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four, kind of give them a little bit of a roadmap. Does that sound good?
That sounds great. And I think agreed. It's the perfect timing to be thinking about your brand and where you want to go and intentionally strategizing it. I'm really, really big on working with women to make sure they're being proactive rather than reactive. So stop and pause and think if these are the types of projects you want to take on, if these are the types of clients you want to serve, and like, where are we moving and going? So this is a good time for that conversation.
And I think that's why I loved you the minute I met you, is the intentionality. My signature program is called Aim with Intent. We don't aim without an intentional target of what we're trying to hit. And that is in everything, which I love that you just mentioned. It has to do being intentional in our hiring, being intentional in our processes, being intentional with the vendors that we work with and the clients that we serve. And so just not doing things by accident. That's why at the end of the podcast, every time I say, choose to be profitable, because profit doesn't happen by accident. And so we really can inform an exact change in our businesses when we are intentional about that.
Absolutely. That's why we're on the same page. That's why you and I get along well. Totally. We design the life that we want, right? And we work backwards to make it happen.
We work backwards. Yeah. I'll put a note in the show notes, but I just did a podcast at the end of last year about build your life into your business, not your business, or build your business into your life, not your life into your business. So plan your life and then let's make the business. I mean, if we're building businesses, we might as well make them work with the life that we want.
Totally. And my previous business, I made a lot of mistakes and I figured it out the hard way. So that's why I like sharing that with women.
Yeah. I think that's the reason we all like to share. We got it wrong and then we got it right. So why don't we start then and let's talk about that just for a couple of minutes, Rachael. Give us a little bit of your history and your background and what brought you to where you are right now.
Yeah. So right now, what I'm doing today is I work with female entrepreneurs and I support them in the luxury lifestyle service arena. So about 60% of my clients are interior designers. Then I have clients that are luxury event planners or clients that are VIP celebrity coaches. So those types of clients I serve. And what I help them do is I help them through elite personal branding. I help them figure out who are they and then how can we market them correctly so they can get credible and visible and make the big bucks for their work. So I'm all about helping women figure out who are they and how do we monetize their personal brand. So how I got to that, kind of funny story, I'll say it quickly. But I went to school at High Point University in North Carolina. For many of your listeners, I'm sure they're familiar with High Point Market. So I went to school studying luxury interior design and also dual majoring in entrepreneurship. So at a really, really young age, I was exposed to internships events and networking. I was doing setup of High Point Market at 18, 19 years old, working market, and then closing it all down. Got my real estate license when I was in college as well. I think I was 20, 21 years old, and just always exposed to this idea of professional development. So I'm sure, Michele, you can relate to this, like with your kids, right? Like when they're good at a sport, they continue to dig in. They get a private coach, they join a traveling club team, but really early on, professional development was my sport. So when I went to High Point University, I was working market. I had my own column with Design Today. I was the youngest millennial to ever have a column there. And along the way, my girlfriends who were so brilliant and talented, who were fashion majors or visual merchandising or interior design majors, were saying to me, like, how'd you get that job? Or, how do I interview for this? And what I recognized was they were incredibly qualified. Right? They had the GPA, they had the leadership skills, they had the design portfolio. But when it came time to land their first job or their first internship, they started to settle. And they started to say things like, well, maybe I'll just go home this year and I'll think about Paris next year. Right? Or maybe I'll work with this kind of company because my dad knows the contact, and not really put myself out there for whatever the dream opportunity was. And what I recognized once again, right? They were qualified, but they were not qualified and hired. And the real disconnect was they didn't know how to market themselves. They didn't know what their special factor was and what their personal brand was. And then most importantly, the art of self-promotion to land the dream job. So naturally, right, through having my real estate license at a really, really young age and, having internships with Phillips Collection and Rochambeau and Hooker and working market for all these years, I brought my girlfriends to my dorm room and we would sit and rewrite the resumes. I would, do little mock interviews with them. And what was really interesting to me, Michele, was very, very quickly, they started landing jobs. So what I recognized was it's an issue in personal branding. It's an issue in identifying who they are and how to market themselves. So when I graduated college, I started my own private coaching business, and it was called The Brand Girls. And at The Brand Girls, we worked with college women to define their brand and market themselves correctly for opportunities. So over the years, I ran that company for 5 or 6 years. We worked with 3,000 college women. I was invited to speak at over 75 universities. So anywhere from Harvard Business School to UCLA brought me in to educate this critical skill of self-promotion. And we worked with Oprah's Leadership Academy. I had girls going through on scholarship. We had over 40 national press outlets, Forbes, Teen Vogue featuring our work. And I had an incredible time running that company. And I came to a position, you and I think, are very similar in this, but I'm an introvert extrovert, right? Like I was having fun on these stages and having fun connecting, but my girlfriends were, interior designers or women in fashion or event planning. And they were saying to me along the way, like, wait a minute, how did you get that Forbes feature? Or how did you get that partnership with Oprah's Leadership Academy? Like, what did that look like? And I organically was coaching my girlfriends and sharing with them like how to position their brand as a service-based female entrepreneur. So organically, I was having so much fun with that. And I ended up exiting Brand Girls. And that's what I do full time now. I work with really brilliant female entrepreneurs to teach them how to do what I did. I teach them how to market themselves, how to build brand partnerships, how to get press, how to get speaking if they want it so they can land those dream clients. So that's what I do now. And I have so much fun. I only work with like 3 women a month and they become my very, very close girlfriends.
All right. So that is an amazing resume, honestly.
Thank you.
For a woman of any age, certainly one who's young. I mean, you're young, and that is truly amazing. So here's something I'm curious about. And I've worked with women for probably 25 years now outside of when I worked in tech. Very different. Tech 35 years ago was a very different thing than it is now. Not as many women there. But I'm curious as to when and how did you develop the self-confidence to be able to self-promote? And where do you see the disconnect with some of the women that you help and that you serve? Because you made the comment, and I've been guilty of this myself. I've already done it. So why will I not see it and say it and own it? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes, I know mine is probably, I think some of it's tied into my age, growing up in the South and the way women, our positions in society and in business from 30, 40 years ago, right? Versus what it is to the world that you came into, because you are closer in age to my children and they see the world very differently with the positioning of men and women within the workforce, right? That's not how it was for me when I started. So I'm just curious how you got the confidence that you got, what built it throughout your life. Certainly you mentioned, I'm sure your parents must have seen that as your sport and encouraged it and, helped you grow in that area. But I share that. And then I would love to know how the other women, like the women that are listening to this podcast, maybe they can't work with you right now or whatever. How do we help them start to own what they've already done so that they can move forward for this year in confidence, right? That's the big thing. I had a friend one time tell me, she's from the South. She said, Michele, if you done what you say you done, then you done it. So just share it.
Yeah.
Like that's not bragging.
Yeah.
It's just you've really done it. And there's a way to share it that is promoting you, but promoting a solution without being braggadocious about it.
Yeah. So to answer a few of those questions, through Brand Girls, I realized that confidence is a muscle that's flexed. Like it's literally a muscle that's flexed. And what we recognized through our research was it takes about 3 yes, you did it moments to start really flexing that muscle. So with our girls that we were working with back then, I mean, my gosh, we were taking them from trailer parks in Kentucky to working at Vogue. We would make sure that they celebrated any of their yes, they did it moments and to write it down. And anytime they were stepping into new territory. So for my clients now, maybe it is like that 7-figure interior design commercial contract, right? Like that's like a scary new moment. We have them write down and remember their previous yes, you did moment. So it is a muscle that's flexed. I think really early on, like as mentioned, like this was my muscle. Like this was my sport. This was something that I worked on training, even when I was in high school. I just was obsessed with real estate. My parents owned fraternity houses. So not luxury real estate by any means, but I was exposed to this idea of like connecting and networking and, had a lot of fun doing it. I had internships, when I was 16, 17 years old and shadowed mentors. So that was my sport. And then I think I just continued to lean into the moments and flex that muscle. And to answer your question on like, how do women promote themselves now? And like, what does that look like? And how can they do it in a way that doesn't feel braggy? First of all, I get it. Like I only work with women like all day, every day. Like I get the imposter complex. I get the limiting beliefs of like, well, who am I to do this? I work with clients that are making like high 6, 7 figures and clients that are making 15 million plus. Like I have clients that are doing incredible and they're public figures and HGTV stars. And it doesn't matter the level, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But like those limiting beliefs continue to carry with you. So what I remind my clients, like my best tip is when people don't know you, they don't trust you. And rightfully so. Like they don't know you, so why should they trust you? But guess what? They do trust a feature in Vogue. They do trust a partnership deal with Surya. They do trust that you worked with blah, blah, blah builders that's well known in your area. So when you have those incredible, I like to call them stamps of approval, right? So external sources that you've worked with, partnered with, been featured with, won an award with, mention them because what it does is it allows people to trust you so you can start a conversation and really showcase the work that you're really good at. And I always say this, like my clients are so good at their craft. They're incredible interior designers. Like I want to move into all of their spaces, right? But at the end of the day, like how do we take that and how do we position it in a way so they're known as the go-to? So we can partner with architects. We can partner with luxury builders so they can fill the pipeline for my client. So put it out there because it helps people support you, trust you, so you can have those conversations. You're doing them a disservice if you don't mention it.
I love that. There are a couple of things it's funny that you mentioned the 3 yes, you did it moments. and using that. And I'm the same way. I talk about financial fluency as a muscle that we build. Marketing is a muscle we build. Confidence is a muscle we build. I work with my clients to do an exercise called the gap and the gain. And so I don't know if you've heard of that exercise or not before. Okay. So if you look at where you are right now and you look into your past, that's the gain.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you've done. And quite often we're so busy looking forward, which is the gap. That's the not yet. And if we focus on the not yet, it leads to anxiety because all we can see is we haven't made it. We're not there. It's on the horizon. It's away. But if we will stop and look backwards and balance those out, then we can see what we have accomplished that has prepared us to be where we are for what we're going to. It's the same thing that you mentioned in a different way about writing down what you've already done. But I also thought it was interesting when you said about 3 being kind of the number through your study. I've recognized over years of doing pricing and working with pricing. When I've adjusted my pricing, in my mind, I always say to myself, this is what I believe the value is of this. And, value is only what somebody's willing to pay for something, right? We can have value all day. But I would always say, the one that once 3 people had bought or purchased at that amount, I could feel confident that that was good and keep going.
Right.
Then if I needed to raise it again. So I almost have a rule of 3s that if I raise my rates and 3 people purchase, I know that that's fair and reasonable. And then if I need to go up again, I go up again. So it's funny that that number was 3. And then the thing I would make a comment about is I also share the leveraged trust. We are sharing trust when somebody, like even when you and I, we have introduced some of our joint client, or they're joint now, but we've introduced our clients to each other. So when I bring you in and share you with my team as an expert and that we've been talking together and I trust what you're doing, it creates this shared trust, this leveraged trust. And it works with people as well as with media and other things. So love that. Okay, what I want to focus on now that we know where you've come from, what you do, and certainly the confidence is a muscle. So I point that out and put an exclamation because some people listening may be going, I can't do all that. Well, the answer is you can do it. You may have to do it in bite-sized pieces and just have to keep working at it.
And also, I think, can I just make a quick comment on that? Because I hear that all the time. Naturally, I do work with women that are established in their business. Sometimes they're only like a year or 2 in, but they're making good cash and good money, right? Like they figured out the systems. But sometimes I'll meet women that are like, okay, well, I'm not ready to work with you, but I need to get all this press and do this, that, and the other, you know what I mean, right now. So how do I do that? Or I don't have that. So I always say to them, like, sit down, pull out your journal, and I want you to dig about what are like juicy tidbits that you've had in your career that can raise your credibility. I'm going to give you a perfect example. So I had a client recently and her name is Elise, and Elise is out in New Orleans, and Elise is a commissioned artist. She does these beautiful abstract pieces, and she's on Magazine Street. And for any of your listeners that know New Orleans and know Magazine Street, it's kind of like the hip kind of fun spot. But her pieces are expensive, right? They're a few grand for a small piece. Now, she was crossing her fingers and toes that tourists that were on Magazine Street were going to just walk into her gallery and want to purchase these beautiful abstract commission pieces. No. Right? Like that's not really how it works. So I said to her, Elise, what we need you to partner with luxury interior designers in the Southeast who are obsessed with your work, who know you, who can sell you themselves, and they each bring you 3-4 clients a year. Let's say we have 6 luxury interior designers that are each bringing you 3 clients. There's 18 pieces. And guess what? You're selling them each at 5 to 10 grand. There's some serious cash where someone was doing your brand ambassador, your sales for you through a partnership. She says to me, sounds brilliant. Let's do it. I go, whoa, wait a second. We can't just go reach out to these luxury interior designers and say, hey, I'm an artist. Here's what I do. We need to figure out your positioning. Okay. So it's same thing for my interior design clients that want to partner with a luxury builder, an architect, or a luxury real estate agent to sell their work for them. I said, we have to figure out what stamps of approval you have so those luxury interior designers can trust you. She said, I don't have anything. Right? I said, let's do some digging.
Which is probably the answer that you get quite
all
often.
The time.
If people aren't looking back, they're thinking, I don't have anything.
Totally. And like all my clients always say that. And like, no matter like how much they're making, I always hear that. Right. So I said to her, we need to brainstorm and we need to think about what is most important to the luxury interior designers. So I want to be really clear here. You want to be pulling stamps of approval that are important to your ideal target market. Okay. So the fact that she was on Magazine Street, that's credible. That's like a really cool place to be. That's like Rodeo Drive, right? Or like Times Square. Okay. Bingo. And then we're doing some chatting and come to find out she's personally mentored by this artist named Ashley Longshore. And Ashley Longshore, for any of your followers who don't know, but Ashley Longshore, I like to describe as kind of like the Andy Warhol of this generation. And she does, Diane von Furstenberg's commission pieces and portraits. Tommy Hilfiger's wife. She has a pop-up in Bergdorf's, right? She has a bajillion followers on Instagram. And Elise was mentored by Ashley Longshore. Ashley Longshore is like really big in the Southeast. So I'm like, bingo, there's a stamp of approval that we can use while introducing you to these luxury interior designers. Then we're yapping away some more. And she tells me 10 years ago, she used to do prints. And she was like, I would never do prints anymore, right? It's not her medium. But she sold them to Pottery Barn. And she had like 6 stores that kind of showcased her work, right? And she's like, Rach, I didn't make anything from it. And I would never do prints now. Like it's beneath my brand. I'm putting that in quotes, right? Because now she just these commissioned original pieces. And I said, it doesn't matter. The fact that you had a licensing deal with Pottery Barn, I don't care that you didn't make money, but Pottery Barn trusted you. Then last but not least, we're yapping away some more and come to find out that she is, I don't know if I'm screwing this up, it's either she's the godmother or vice versa to Alexa Hampton, right? And Alexa Hampton's a major, major, major interior designer, right? Like Nate Berkus level. And she has the pieces in her house. So I'm like, okay, Elise, so do you see now how we can position you as this beautiful abstract artist on Magazine Street, personally mentored by Ashley Longshore? Early in your career, you had a licensing line with Pottery Barn and Alexa Hampton endorses your work. Do you see how those stamps of approval now allow you to have conversations with luxury interior designers who will be able to sell you to their clients? My point is, Elise came to me saying, Rach, I have nothing. You guys all have something. And it might not be exactly what Elise has, but it's probably something different. So if you want to have partners with luxury builders, architects, realtors that fill the pipeline for you, I do a lot of work with my clients, getting their brand ready, niching them down, having them positioned as the go-to expert, getting the press so we can create those lucrative partnership deals. Think about it. If you have a luxury builder that brings you 5, 6 gorgeous, gorgeous projects a year, bingo, right? That's big cash. It fills the pipeline for you. But in order to have that conversation, you got to niche down. You have to step into the space of self-promotion. You have to do it because it's going to allow people to trust you. Michele, just even like how you introduced me, you brought me into your mastermind recently with your brilliant women. You weren't just like, Rach does personal branding. We're excited to have her here. You said, Rachel's a speaker at Harvard Business School. She's coached anyone from Kathy Kuo to Luann Nigara, and I'm going to be working with Rachel on my own personal brand as a client. And she supported some of my clients to land these sorts of deals. We're excited to have her. Big difference in an introduction. A lot of my clients are missing that when on their website, in their bio, how they're introducing themselves to potential clients. Right? They're in a position where they feel like they're almost trying to sell themselves in a way of, here's my systems, here's my process, here's what I can do, where they're not seen as the expert.
Right. So a couple of things that you said, and I think this is important. I think it's been an underlying theme to what we've been talking about. And I really think I want to bring it up to the surface. And that is, we are doing these things. We are creating these trusts so that we can have the conversation. You've probably said that 3 or 4 times. Sales don't always happen. And I use sales as the closing of an opportunity to work together. There's an investment on both sides to get to know each other. What we're talking about is creating the bridge that allows the two entities to even want to have a conversation and to be able to open the conversation. And so what you're talking about is creating this bridge of trust, this leveraged trust that says, okay, wait a minute. We know the same people. We know the same things. You've done some things that let's say that I'm inspired by or that intrigue me and I want to know more, learn more. And it's still up to us to sell it. But this is what's opening the door so that we can cross the bridge to have the conversation.
You got it. And it also helps close the conversation too.
Absolutely. Right. Because we know the old, they have to know you, like you, and trust you. And as fast as they can get from no to trust, then they'll buy. But they're not going to buy from somebody that they don't know, that don't like, and that they don't trust. So the three we talked about in the pre-conversation to the podcast, Rachel, we talked about this idea of this branding and this brand strategy as almost like a three-legged stool, right?
Yes.
Niching down, creating authority, and then having visibility. And so if we don't have one of those, we have a problem, right? So like if we have, this awesome, we've niched down, we know who we are and what we do and how we serve, and we have an authority, but nobody knows about us. And I've been there, best kept secret. That's not good unless you really want to be a secret. And I'm like you, I'm an introvert, extrovert. And so I don't mind being on a stage and talking, but I really like
you want to work with your dream clients and do the work you want to do.
I want to work with my clients. I used to always say, I don't have to be that well known. I just need to be well known by the people that I can help. And then what I really want to do is roll up my sleeves and I just want to serve them. And so I used to always say, why can't they just find me? Why can't they? It was the visibility piece. And then conversely, so I'm just going to talk about them for a second. And then I want you to really dig in because you're the expert here. But let's say we've niched down, but we've not created that authority. We've not tied those things together, similar to what you were expressing with the Alexa Hampton and the stamps of approval. We don't have those. Maybe we have them, but we don't have them listed. We don't own them. We're not putting them out there. So we've niched down. We know what we do. And now we're trying to be visible. Well, the problem is nobody's going to trust us because we've missed that. And then if we have the niching and we have the authority, or I've already said that one, but let's say that we have the authority and the visibility, but we didn't niche down. So we don't have that clarity on who we're serving. And this is where I said to you, I've done this too, where I had some authority and they came to work with me, but I wasn't niched down in what I was awesome at. And so I constantly, for a short time there, I was constantly trying to adjust what I did to serve them, realizing at the end of the day that I actually was disserving them by not being more clear and more focused and more, honestly, offering less, but deeper. Like I didn't want to be all things to all people. I just too much to keep up with. Right. And so that three-legged stool is important. So share with us a little bit on what you believe about that, niching, and then the authority and the visibility.
Totally. I'm like excited about this. This is my favorite thing to
I know, right?
Okay. Well, in short, clients come to me when they feel like they want to make more money in their business and they want to work with less clients. Okay. So the first thing that I tell them is we have to niche down. So for your listeners, like write this down. Like people do not pay top dollar for general experts. Like I'm going to say that again. They don't pay top dollar for general experts. Now you may be thinking and listening, being like, well, I'm not a general expert. I do blah, blah, blah design. It's curated, right? It's transitional. It's contemporary. It's this, that, and the other. There's a lot of other interior designers that do very similar work. So I'm going to give you a client example just because I think that that's really helpful to kind of land the plane here. And I shared this with your mastermind group, but I had a client recently named Anne. Anne is fabulous. Anne's in DC. She came to me saying, Rach, I love doing family spaces. I'm a mom myself. I love doing family rooms, nurseries, outdoor spaces, bedrooms. And I said, awesome. Same with every other interior designer, right? And I said, okay, we got to niche down. So niche down means like, we don't want to position you as a general expert because that's what's happening right now. Right? You're saying, this is what I can do. I can work with families. Same with everyone else. So together we decided to niche down and say that she's an in-demand playroom designer. Okay. And through our digging and niching her down, we decided she wants to work with really high profile attorneys, lobbyists, C-suite execs in DC that have issues with their kids addicted to the tablet. And because of that, they're not developing leadership skills. They're not learning to socialize in a way that's going to support them long-term. Critical thinking, it's missing. Right? So we decided together, that's who we want to serve. People that are doing 6-figure playrooms. Okay. So that's the niche. Then we're like, okay, let's build the authority around it. What do you have, Anne? And what do we need to build? From our work together, we uncovered that she has a huge background in early education. And she helped co-create this curriculum about intentional and holistic play that's now taught in 45 school districts. Through our work together, Parents Magazine, Family Fun, Wall Street Journal, Washingtonian, right? All credible sources, once again, that are ideal to her dream target market. Let's be clear here. Parents and Family Fun Magazine does not make sense for me as an elite personal branding coach to have on my roster, but for Anne, who wants to target high-profile C-suite execs for their kids, those are great, coupled with Wall Street Journal, Washingtonian, right? Okay, so now we are able to introduce her as an in-demand playroom designer that works with high-profile families, and she has this big background in intentional play taught in 45 school districts. She observes the kids play, she does a toy audit, and she develops a space that's really intentional by partnering with the family. Do you see the difference, right? Of her being like, I love kids, I have family rooms, like outdoor spaces, to I'm an expert now. I've niched down. I have the authority around my brand. And now what's really interesting, and this is what I'm obsessed with doing, is I help my clients create a velvet rope. So what I mean by a velvet rope is like a velvet rope, like literally think about putting it in front of you, where you're in a position now, because we niche down and have the authority, where you're not going after projects trying to convince the client that you're the right fit. You're not saying, oh, I have so many ideas. We can do this timeline. I would bring in these resources. Here's my system. You're in a position where Anne's like, here's what I do. Here's who I serve. So you better believe that no one's flinching that she's double the price for a playroom than every other interior designer. Mm-hmm. Because we niche down because
I love the toy audit. I mean, that just is amazing.
Oh, yeah. That's something. But here's what's interesting. Anne was already doing a toy audit. Anne was already observing them play. She wasn't marketing it. And that's why she hired me to come in and say, like, what do I already have? And then how can we market it correctly? Right?
Yeah. Yep. And you know what's interesting, Rachel, is I do the same kind of thing on the financial side for my clients. My comment is, how do we make more and work less? Not how do I have you work more to make more? And so where are we not capturing the value of valuable products and services that you're already offering or doing? So it's usually a disconnect between understanding the value and quality of what you're already putting out there and being able to capitalize on that. And the velvet rope policy, I've been teaching that for 10 years. And I tell them all the time, there's got to be something that allows their name to be on the list, to allow that rope to be unhooked on one side and moved for you to go through. Again, that's why you, me, and our listeners, we can't be all things to all people. You just can't.
Nor should you. If you want to be top dollar, you cannot be positioning yourself as general expert. And do not tell me I'm not a general expert, because if you don't have a specific market you're serving, where you have a specific service that you offer, you are positioning as general expert, right? So really thinking about that. And I want to do the last leg of the chair, right? So we have the niche down with Anne. We know who she serves. We know what she does. We have the authority with the press, her background in doing the curriculum development. And now the next stage here is visibility. So these are the 3 steps that I do with all of my clients. The visibility is now, how do we make sure you're known for this work so you can fill your pipeline, right? Like, where's the money coming from? You can have a great niche and have the authority, but if you're not in the right room, how are you converting? Okay, so for Anne, we always get creative here. I'm always thinking about partnerships. If you have a velvet rope correctly positioned in front of your brand, you should not be hustling trying to get the clients. You should be in a position where people fill the pipeline for you because you are the go-to expert. So for Anne, we decided together, guess what? Concierge pediatricianist, you know what I'm talking about, big bucks. Or schools, like we're the nursery school, and I'm sure your listeners know, it's like $80,000 a year. It's like crazy, crazy. Those are ideal partners. So we need to be visible to them, because if we're in the right room with them, those people, those two institutions are going to fill the pipeline for her. So watch this, right? So if we get Anne, and we're working on this right now, we just finished our coaching, but getting Anne in a room of, let's say, nursery school parents at these $70,000 preschools, we have, let's call them 10 families in the room. They're paying $70,000 a year. Anne goes in and she says, I'm an in-demand playroom designer. I support intentional play. Here's my background with the curriculum, blah, 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 blah. Here's what I do. If you need a resource, I'm your person. Guess what? She closes 2 or 3 of them, right? So big cash and visibility done in a really strategic way. Now, Anne couldn't have gotten in that room of that preschool and, convinced the principal to let her in unless she was niche down, right? If she went in and was like she was before, I can do playrooms, I can do this, that, and the other, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. Now, you don't need to be as niche down as Anne. I'm just using her because I think it's a pretty self-explanatory example that we get it. A lot of my clients come to me being like, I want to work with families that are professional, right? And they want to, and I want to be known as someone that does new builds. Like, that's what I want to be known for. And I'm like, great. Okay, let's figure out like what's important to those people. How do we niche you down? How do we get you in the right rooms? So you don't have to be niche down as much as Anne, but I think that's a really good example.
I think there's another point to be made here before we jump in to kind of have this as a focus for Q1, Q2, Q3, and 4. Yep. And that is, and you and I talked about it as well, not all visibility, and I've had a couple of other conversations about visibility on the podcast, not all visibility has to be national or international. It could very much be local, just in your city or in your county or in your state. I hear sometimes designers saying, I want to be in XYZ national magazine. Well, there is some of that that's awesome if that's something that you just really have a desire to do. But quite often, those aren't the ones that fill the pipeline. The ones that fill the pipeline are when they are in the local paper or when they're in a local magazine sent to the target market in the zip codes that they want to work in. That level of press, while not national and international, actually feeds their pipeline more than some of the others. And so I say that because niching down, actually all 3 of these items, niching, authority, and visibility, they're continuums, right? There's not just one way to do it. It's what is niching that's right for you, for the authority that you need to build, for the area that you want to serve, and then finding the visibility, finding that room. And so that room, like you said, could be a local school, the local PTA. Heck, I know my whole first business, it got kicked off because I had, from my subdivision, there were 88 homes. One person found out what I did. We started talking about what I did. And I went from home to home to home to home, brand new subdivision, and did all their window treatments and helped them design their spaces, right? That is the idea of the visibility in a room. And then rooms can expand and can change to be, all those things. So I don't want the listeners to think, oh my gosh, I've got to go big or go home. No,
please go.
And not everybody wants it. Everybody's idea of a full pipeline is different. Everybody's idea of money is different. This is more about the strategy of not having to work so darn hard and hustle and fight to get the next job. This is about having other people connect you properly because they know who you are and what you do. It reminds me a little bit of the podcast I did with Stacey Brown Randall, where she's talking about referrals that stick. And her comment was, the difference between a true referral and word of mouth buzz. Word of mouth buzz is, oh yeah, I've heard of Rachael. Versus, this is Rachael. I know her. That transfer of trust, that leverage trust. That's the same thing that we're trying to help all of those that are listening create within their own environment and spheres of influence, if you will. And then to be that for somebody else. I think that's also important. It's not just about what can all of these people in the room do for me, but what can I do for all of them? And then that creates just this beautiful relationship that's not so hard.
Right. And two points on what you're saying. A good note for your listeners you want to write down is what is important to your ideal client. So remember, let's use Anne, family fun, parents magazine. That's important to her ideal client. Okay. Jenny Slingerland, right? Jenny's one of my clients, and then she's also one of Michelle's clients. And Jenny introduced us. Thank goodness. I love her. And Jenny came to me saying, I really want to work with athletes, right? And that want turnkey. They just relocated to Arizona for the Cardinals team. And they want a turnkey, beautiful home. Guess what? They don't really know what, Elle Decor is or Arc Digest, these 23-year-old players, but they know Men's Health and GQ. So number one, ask yourself, what is important to your ideal client? Okay. And if you're B2B, it's probably a trade publication. If you are wanting to serve like a very small local market, it's probably, I have a client in Philadelphia and she really just wants to serve old historic Philly townhomes. Then it's the Philadelphia Inquirer, right? It's the Historical National Trust that puts out a publication. Like that's her ideal market. And then the next note I want to make is most of the clients I work with don't want to work with a bajillion clients a year. They want to work with like max 15, 16, 17 clients a year. And because that's the case, we want to make sure that you're partnering with individuals where not only are they filling your pipeline, Michele, you mentioned this, but you're serving them as well, where it's a natural trust, right? You help them, they help you. It's a natural fit. So just being really intentional on that. It's not something that you have to really go big and partner with 15 people. You have 2-3 people that are totally a right fit. That's where you really want to be.
In my Aim with Intent methodology, we talk about the align your team. That's part of the A for AIM. And a team is any two people. And so when we think of team, we're thinking of an internal team, like me with my lawyer or me with my brand expert or me with my employees. But then you're also looking at me with my referral partners, me with my vendors. So aligning your team allows you to work with fewer people of a higher caliber that more align with values and understanding what you do. When people ask me all the time, Michele, tell me who your ideal client is in your target market in case I know somebody. My trust level just for them goes up because they ask that question.
Right.
Versus not asking it and being willing to just send me anything because I'm a coach, instead saying, who is your ideal and how do you serve them? And so I want to encourage the listeners, ask that question of people that you meet, like who is your ideal and who do you love? So that if I run across that person, I send them, not just the generic public again.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. Yep.
Okay. So this is so good, we could sit here and talk all day, but as we think about the year, if we were to break up some of these things for those that are going to try to attempt to do some of this on their own, what should let's break it down and say what a focus could be for first quarter of the year.
Niche down and then niche down again. I meet a lot of women that are like, yeah. Oh, and also side note, when you're niching down, you want to make sure that you're niching down your group of who you want to serve and how you want to serve them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I want to be really clear on that. Niching down for an aesthetic, it's fine, but it's going to be really, really hard for you to find the right partners because you're serving like a wide range of people. So niche down for who you want to serve. Literally, are they like professional individuals? Are they people that just moved into their forever home and they have a huge gut reno? Are these historical properties? Like, who do you want to serve? And then how do you want to serve them? Meaning I have some clients that come to me and they're like, I want to do a minimum of 1 floor for full furnishings. And like, that is how they want to serve them, and full home. Like that's the offer. And like, I want to do playrooms. Okay. So figuring out who you want to serve and how you want to serve them. And then start telling people that, right? Start telling people when you have meetings, when you're asking a client for a referral, say, I'm further niching down and stepping into, this next season of my business. Here's who I'm looking to work with now. Do you have any friends that might be a good fit? Start talking. That'd be a good Q1.
Awesome.
Focus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Q2.
Build that authority. So not either, it's both. So step A, sit down and look back and ask your friends and family too. What have I done that's been interesting or cool in my career? I want you to think back. Remember that Elise example. Who have you worked with? What awards do you have? What press do you have? What big name clients have you served that maybe their name raises your credibility? Right. And then if you feel like you need to bridge the gap and gain some more, then that's the time to start thinking about next steps with authority building. We could have a whole nother conversation on like press and, different brand partnership deals, but That's your time to authority build. I also want to promote your listeners to make sure they're being really clear that making sure the stamps of approval match their ideal client. So once again, a lead artist, she's not going to tell the general public, if that's her ideal market trying to sell to, that she is mentored by Alexa Hampton or mentored by Ashley Longshore and the godmother of Alexa Hampton's kids. That doesn't make sense, right? That people walking down the street in New Orleans are going to know those names. So for me, whenever I talk in the design industry, I always say, speaker, 2 times over at Design Influencers Conference, High Point Market Authority, have a column in Design Today. I coach Luann Nigera and Kathy Kuo and Sandra Funk and all these other incredible interior designers. By me associating with things that are reputable in the design industry, it supports the trust for other interior designers. When I'm working with luxury event planners or VIP, celebrity nutrition coaches, you guys, they don't know what Design Influencers Conference is. They don't. So I pull different resources and different things that I've done in different industries. So be really, really clear. Is this important to my ideal target market? A lot of times I have designers that won incredible industry awards, but if you're not B2B, they don't really know what that is.
Exactly. All right. Q3.
Get those partnerships, baby. That's time to fill the pipeline. You want to be really, and I spend so much time with my clients figuring out who we want to hyper target as a partner. What's the conversation? What do we send them ahead of a time? What's the partnership deal? But literally, who do you know that's your ideal partner? They hang out with your client all day, every day. And how can you build some sort of strategic partnership where the pipeline is filled for you? They are doing the work for you because you have the velvet rope. You niche down. You have the authority. Then it's time to start reaching out for the partnerships.
Okay. And Q4.
Dig in, continue those partnerships. Once you niche down and have authority, you're pretty much, I'm going to put in quotes, good to go. So what I mean by that is once you have one, let's call it GQ for Jenny, right? That wants to work with the athletes. When she has one GQ, she doesn't need another GQ, right? Putting GQ times 2 on her bio or her website or partnership package, it doesn't help her further getting more clients or building more trust. So once you have the niche and authority, and that's where I do a lot of heavy lifting, helping my clients do it, then it's time to continue the partnerships and making sure that you're nailing it and you're having the right conversations, you're giving them the resources so they can correctly introduce you. And then also really thinking about partnering with your past clients and having them do referrals for you. So I have clients where we plan together doing a really beautiful reveal and housewarming party, right? Where they invite 6 couples and, they're able to close 2 because they have an incredible niche and authority and they have the right client they partnered with. So really just further honing in on partnerships. Your money's hanging out on partnerships big time. If you want larger projects, less clients, it's a partnership move for you.
I love it. I love it. This has been so fun. And I really think that, I know even for me, here's the thing. Let me say this. This work isn't once and done. This is continual work because I have found that as I niche down, I sometimes am niching down more and more and more, or my business is shifting a little bit or pivoting. We've talked about that. And so it's keeping a constant flex to that muscle and to the authority and the visibility, because these may change over time. Who we're targeting and how we're targeting them and who our ideal clients are and who our authority partnerships are with and all of that. And so I just don't want anybody to think, oh, gosh, I did this work 7 years ago. Well, it may still work for you, but it might not. And so just keeping our eye on the fact that this is evolving as we evolve.
Totally. And once you do it once, right? So once you know how to niche down correctly once and build authority once and do the partnerships once, then it makes it a whole lot easier to do it again. So what I mean is maybe you're in a position in your business right now where you really want to do kitchen and baths. Right. And we niche you down for that. We get the press around that. We partner with all these incredible GCs. And then 5 years later, you're like, I want to do kitchen, bath, and full remodels. Guess what? You already know how to do it. So now it's just taking the next step. And also, I just want to point out, if you're struggling with this right now, First of all, I get it. It's really, really, really hard to view yourself as a consumer. It's really hard. Like even myself, like I did my own personal brand audit. I do it every 6 months. I went to the coffee shop last week and I was taking down all my notes, rewriting different, referral introduction statements. And I was second guessing myself. And I do this all day, every day. Like I've helped thousands of women with their brand. So just really making sure that, you're stepping away and like asking friends and family for support or thinking about who's your favorite client and what's important to them is going to be really important in the process. It's not about what you want, but it's about what the clients want and how do you position yourself for the ideal client.
Exactly. So Rachael, tell everybody where they can find you if they're interested in learning more about you and about what you do and perhaps how to work with you.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, my website, so it's rachelbozsik.com, RACHAEL, Bozsik, BOZSIK.com. I have a free download on my website, which I just think is really supportive to this conversation. It breaks down there's 15 different opportunities that I talk about, whether it is, a trade publication or a podcast, like what are the options and who is it right for? So I think that that's a really good resource to download. And then if you are intrigued by this conversation today and had a few, aha moments and curious about learning more of working with me one-on-one, then visit my website and I have applications for different coaching packages. If I feel like it's a right fit based off of your application, I'll reach out and we'll set up a call and kind of take it from there.
That sounds awesome. Rachael, thank you so much for sharing. I love the conversation and I'm looking forward. Maybe we'll just bring you back this year and we can talk more about that authority and partnerships. I think that would be a really interesting conversation to dig more into.
I love it. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
So much goodness in that conversation with Rachael. I'm currently working with her to fine-tune my own strategy and hope you'll consider it too. Rachael's work is a fantastic adjunct to what I offer in my coaching using the AIM with Intent methodology. Knowing how to make money serving our ideal client and then managing that money well brings stress relief. If you're ready to understand the money, the finances, and how they fit into the business and lifestyle that you want, check out my Work With Me page at scarletthreadconsulting.com. You can sign up for a discovery call and we can see if we're a good fit. Remember, choose to be profitable in all aspects of your company because profit doesn't happen by accident. Profit is a Choice is proud to be part of the designnetwork.org, where you can discover more design media reaching creative listeners. Thanks for listening and stay creative and business minded.